Hello, George. How are you today?
Hey, a very good evening to you again, Jamal. I am on top of the world just like you are. Hey, listen,
First of all,
I want to ask how you are because you're looking fabulous as usual. Listen, buddy, you need to tell me your secret. I mean, how do you manage to always look so great every time we speak? There's got to be a secret, or is it the fact that you were just born that way, Jamal?
thank you so much, George. Well, I tell you what, I try to live healthy as much as I can in terms of sleep and meditation and food. Obviously, I eat too many sweets, but you know what I mean, George. I try to keep some kind of balance because, as you know, trading can be straining as well. So I believe in, doing like having a schedule, doing some sports, doing some music by the side to balance out everything a bit.
Well, you're lucky you're still young, buddy. Wait till you get to my age and you can start worrying.
I understand. First of all, thank you to the community. George and me, we got nice feedback for the last podcast. People left nice comments. They left nice likes. So, in the name of George and me, thank you guys so much for appreciating what we're doing here. And of course, once again, thanks so much to you, George, for doing this. I mean, as you said before, George, today it will be a tour de force. George will go really into depth regarding the mechanics of the psychology. He has a lot of content he wants to show you. It will be fantastic. In fact, I will try to keep my own comments to a minimum. So whenever you want me to comment on something, George, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, let's just go ahead because I know that George wants to go through several topics. And it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of good content, which is relevant, by the way, for all kinds of traders, not only FX. It's also relevant for someone trading stocks. It's also relevant for someone investing in an index. What George will explain today is pretty much relevant for anyone who is involved in trading. And I'm really looking forward to this one. Just a question, George. I guess that the next podcast will be about TMA, or what was the next one?
No, basically, there are three anchors that I run to my theories in this game. And the first and most important anchor, of course, is the psychology aspect of the trading, because psychology in trading is actually 98% of the equation. And the next anchor, of course, is the actual target theory that I have developed, which is exactly what you do, exactly, except you do it with data, and you do it normally without voice on your project. Where the way I do it is manually, that it's manually drawn on charts, and you can see the market running up to targets and everything like that, exactly the way you do it. And the third anchor, of course, that I use in my artillery is the TMA tool. It's an amazing, of course, tool, the TMA, once a trader can master the use of it with the right settings. But of course, when that comes, that's a very, very powerful foundation to it, because there is no guessing in the way that I use the TMA tool. Everything is based on facts that do exist in the actual mechanics of the price.
Fantastic. So yeah, that means that today will be really important because obviously that's a very, very relevant basic topic, the psychology of the market makers as well as the psychology of the trader. George, you know what? Let's get straight into it.
Well, Jamal, like through the years that I have been trading, and especially since I started the project, is that there is a very, very noticeable thing that keeps popping up all the time. And you experienced it yourself, I am pretty sure, as well, with the your family members as well. And that is that a lot of traders, whether they're new, especially that is the new traders, but it's amazing how many traders that have been in this game for whatever, through 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years, believe it or not. There are many, many traders out there that are truly struggling with their mindset, they really struggling with the psychology that they need to adopt to this business, because the problem is, you listen to all the so-called educators out there through all the videos that are available, and every one of them talks about psychology, psychology, psychology. Like I said before in the previous video, and what do you call it? About fearing greed and all that nonsense. You know, nobody ever goes into depth about what is required. Now, I will publicly say I really have admiration for two traders that actually do educate, and they are two of the most genuine human beings that I have seen that are so generous. And I'll make it public. One of them is Michael Huddleston, ICT Inner Circle trader. He's
Yeah.
an amazing trader in my opinion. And also, too, I have a lot of admiration for. The other trader that I have a lot of respect for is, of course, Oliver Velez. Although he is a share trader, but I'm telling you, he's an absolute amazing human being. He is so generous, and he actually uh, talks more about psychology than Michael. But here tonight we're really going to go into some real examples, pictures, demonstrations, explanations, breakdown on uh, how to view the market. How should you be looking at that market? What do you need to see in a chart? How should you be viewing the chart? Traders unfortunately trot blindly in this game. Many of them, a huge percentage, trot blindly, not knowing where their focus should be. And that is something that can be mastered, but unfortunately, nobody talks about it in detail. And that's the point that I'm going to talk about tonight. And that is how a trader should be developing a boundless mindset. That is extremely important. Being boundless in your approach, being boundless in your view, being boundless in your thinking, that is so extremely important, Jamal. Please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe in the future, George, we can get the ICT trader on the podcast if you want. We can look at this as well. It's always great to see a lot of traders. The thing is, George, you have so much knowledge to share that I think, we first do a few podcasts about, all the topics you are covering. And maybe later on we look at that as well, no? But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I know you will share some great concepts regarding the mindset and the psychology. It is, of course, absolutely relevant to any trader. I mean, just one note: I'm pretty sure, or I can almost guarantee, the market manipulation of today is completely automated. So basically, the way the smart money algos work, everything is pretty much programmed. There can still be intervention, but by now in 2019, they have basically automated that psychology. So that's the amazing part. But funny enough, as a trader, you are basically also kind of reverse engineering that psychology. So as you said, the concepts which you will explain now, they are the 101 of trading. Even if you as a trader want to design an automated strategy, an expert advisor, even for that, it's highly relevant to understand the points which you will now show, George.
Well, look, it's irrelevant whether it's an algorithm or whether it's a manual activation or whatever application. It really is irrelevant. The important thing is that psychology applied by the market maker is so obvious on the charts. When we go into the target theories and the charting later on, maybe in the next podcast, I will actually show exact detail of how the psychology is applied. It is so clear, Jamal, and you and I have talked about this in links and in private. And I've got examples. I'll show them exactly how it's done. It's so visible on the chart. It's there in front of their eyes. But anyway, first of all, I'd like to ask everybody to forgive me with this scratch that I've got in my throat. It's annoying. I'm not sick. It's not a cold or anything. It's just that hay fever in my throat. And lately, with this cold weather that we're going through here in Australia, it has been a bit uncomfortable. So let's get into this, and uh, I will start to share screen right now.
Yeah.
And I am sure that you should be able to see my screen by now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's the most important thing, in my opinion, like I said, is that a trader needs to approach this business with a boundless mindset. Anything goes, everything is possible. Do not dictate what is going to happen in this market. Do not tell the market what it needs to do. Learn to let the market tell you what it's going to do, but learn how to read how it is all done, how it is all applied, because, like I said, it is all there visible on the charts. Now, as you can see, I have prepared a few things here for everybody, and I will go through systematically into a few different things, and I'll keep tossing and changing here and there.
Sure.
Let's start with a very, very important point, and that is uh, let's start with this. Now, as you can see, what we're looking at here is a flock of sheep herd. The problem is, you go to public forums, for example, and please, guys, forgive me with some of the language I will use. Unfortunately, many traders, whether they realize it or not, they go around public forums like public forums trading prostitutes. Why? Because they go from one thread to another, and everybody is just chasing a trading system, or they're chasing an EA, or they're chasing an indicator. Okay?
Sure.
And I always said, George does not use a trading system. We have done, over 200 pages on the project already, about 4,000 odd posts, whatever it is, I can't remember. And I keep saying, I don't use a trading system. I trade to a deep and comprehensive understanding of the psychology that is applied to the price action. That is it. You know what people are after, Jamal. They want to go and sit with you at the local pub, and they want to grab a drink coaster, a cardboard drink coaster, turn it over with a pen and say, George, Jamal, can you please write me your trading system? Well, no, it doesn't work that way. So what's happening is that if we look at these sheep here, you can see not one of them has got its head up. They all with their heads down, watching the feet of the next sheep walking blindly behind one another. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's the first thing a trader needs to do, for heaven's sake. Get out of that locked up mentality, blind mentality. Get rid of that. You need to get that out of yourself, because that is killing you. You need to examine everything. You need to test everything. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Jamal. Don't just do your own testing. Don't follow blindly anybody. I can guarantee you the strategy and the theories that the theories that we apply, Jamal and I, they work 100%. There's no two ways about it. But it's a word of an advice, from people like Jamal and I. We've been in this game long enough. So it is very important to look at this. Stephen Hawking, what does he say? Which is so true. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge.
Mm.
That is such a huge enemy to traders. Don't get eluded about your knowledge. Admit that you don't know. It's very, very important. Why? Because trading, as we said in the first podcast, is a business that requires an extremely, extremely high level of self-discipline. George, Jamal, anybody's not going to be there with you to hold you accountable to your actions. You are the only person that can do that. So do yourself a favor, for heaven's sake. Do not illude yourself that you know what you are doing. Always examine where you are, examine your knowledge level, examine your consistency, examine your understanding, examine your mindset. Always hold yourself accountable to every single point that you can think of. And that's, again, up to you to take our advice. We can only tell you from our own experiences what we do to be, to give ourselves the ability to have that edge and have that very high strike rate, which for me at the moment, 98 to 99% minimum. Yes, I do achieve that day after day. Why? I'm very, very selective. I am very precise. I am very diligent, and I don't take anything for granted. Everything is thought of well. Everything is well planned, whether it's a money plan, whether it's my trading plan, the hedging plan that I use, whether it's my target systems, whether it's theories and targets on my charts, whether it's my TMA work, it's all there. There's nothing missing. So what I'd like to start with is some beautiful words that Sadhguru has actually recorded. I forget his name, Carmichael, I think his name is, and he puts the 10 rules to success by different people. Sadhguru is one of them. I very highly recommend that video be watched. Actually, I will bring it up here. Hang on. It's this video here, Jamal. By all means, you can put the link later on for everybody. I'll give you the link and put it to the video. And also the 10 rules of success for Michael Jordan are absolutely amazing. Now, I have actually written down rule number 6, which is about being boundless, in actual words, almost word to word. And I'd like to take the time just to quickly read it out for people, because this is 4 minutes long in recording, but I tell you, Jamal, and I tell all the listeners, this will change somebody's life for the rest of their life forever, whether it's their trading life, whether it's their personal life, whatever it is. This is it. So basically, I will read it out. It's not that long at all. We are completely committed to one dimension of our intelligence, which we call as the intellect, which is just a thought process. Thought can only happen through the data which we have gathered through our 5 senses, which is very limited on one side. On the other side, the nature of data that the senses gather are only useful for survival purposes. The very nature of how you see things, how you see, smell, and taste and touch life is only relevant for our survival process. If you are wanting to know the life itself, then these instruments of perception are no good. Even light and darkness is a debate between you and another creature, which sees darkness as light. If you sit with an owl in an argument as to which is light and which is darkness, it will be an endless debate. Correct, Jamal?
Yes, sir.
But who do you think is right? Well, you may say both, but which is the truth? What we see is the truth, or what the owl sees as the truth. That is not the point, though. It is just that nature has opened our senses of perception as to what is necessary for our survival. And Accordingly, it opened up the sense of perception for other creatures as to what is necessary for their survival. But if survival is all you are seeking, then this is good enough, the five senses. But once we come as human beings, survival is not good enough. If your stomach is empty, you only have one issue, which is about food. But once your stomach is full, you have 100 issues going on. So the nature of a human being is such, no matter what we do, it is never enough. We want to be something more than what you are right now. Exactly. You always want to be something more than what you are right now. And if that something more happens, then it is something more, something more. It's an endless pursuit. So, somewhere a human being is seeking a limitless expansion, but trying to do it through a physical mean. The very nature of physicality is a defined boundary. If there is no defined boundary, there is no possibility of physical happening in the universe. But now a human being is longing for the boundless through physical means. The desire is fantastic, but the method is hopeless. How beautiful is that?
Amazing. Amazing.
Because the moment you identify yourself with anything, your intellect works just to protect that identity. Whatever that identity, whether it's of nation, family, gender, race, religion, or whatsoever, your intellect will only function around that to protect that identity. So it is some type of prejudice the moment you are identified. That would have to be one of the most beautiful summaries I have come across in my life from Sadhguru.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
I urge everybody to listen to him say it. I'm trying to read, and sometimes my eyes were losing the line. That's why I was slowing down. But listen to this thing over and over, people. I really, really highly suggest it. It's very, very important because you need to become boundless, and that is so important.
It's amazing, George, that through trading you actually get to know yourself better, isn't it? Because you basically you're confronted with your own personality, you know? You have to work on yourself. You have to understand what are your psychological biases, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what is your belief system. I mean, you're right. All these things they are relevant because what's happening in the brain, and of course it's a whole nother discussion, but apart from the fact that the brain has different functions it can perform, like analytical functions as well as emotional functions, etc. I don't want to go too far off topic, but of course, I mean, whenever you do a decision in life, and that goes far beyond trading, isn't it? What factors into this decision is, for example, okay, what's actually your belief system? What's your self-identification? What's your value system? All these things that play a role. And in trading, of course, when you have a binary decision, or let's say a two-dimensional decision, when your analysis comes down to that two-dimensional decision, what happened before was, of course, whether you want it or not, whether you are aware of it or not, your brain goes through all these kind of analytical and decision-making processes. And as you know, George, I love those kind of topics. I love talking also about spirituality, and it's a fantastic idea to put up this quote because this quote summarizes a lot of those topics, isn't it? I mean, like, wow, I'm fantastic, George. Really, really, really nice. Yeah. Anyways, I
Well,
don't want to talk too much. I'm talking too much.
no. It's quite good. It's quite all right. Don't worry. Now, the this I want to start like giving some examples as to what I'm referring to here with what Sadhguru is talking about, and that is because it's good to say these things, but it's important to break it down for people to think exactly what we are trying to put across. So, as you can see here, we have a dollar note. Okay, so question I ask: this is $1, correct? Hey, Jamal.
Yeah.
What is a dollar, Jamal? I mean, people, oh, yeah, it's a dollar. Yeah, $5. Yeah, that's $10. What is a dollar? People take things for granted. Well, when it comes to trading, my advice is that everything which we'll talk about later in detail, everything there in trading, and the charts, the price, the swings, and everything, so-called nonsense trends and all that kind of jazz, you need to understand what they really are. What is a dollar? Well, I tell you how George looks at a dollar to give you an idea how George views that market and the chart when it's moving. What does it mean to George? A dollar in George's eyes is the collective monetary value of 100 cents put together that we now call a dollar. Yes, you can see it sounds crazy, but there's a big difference when you look at that dollar in its, at its reality and foundation of how it came about. Okay, that's very important. Why? Because later on, when we go into the actual mechanics of the game, this I will remind people about this dollar note. It's very, very important to remember. It is the 100 cents that we are dealing with, not this.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very important because that is very relevant to trends.
Yes.
Right. I'm just giving them ideas about how to think about things, how detailed and how deep you need to be focused on what you are dealing with. Because when you start to go to that depth, it's when you'll start to master everything. Would you agree, Jamal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, it is very important that a person is flexible in their thoughts, flexible in everything that they do. And Bruce Lee, empty your mind and be formless and shapeless like water. I love the way you put it. When you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You put it in the bottle, it becomes the bottle. And I say to people, you go and you go down to a little lake and you see this little slow running lake, and you will see the water running down the lake, and you will have a little rock at the edge of the lake, and the water just very gently, very, very softly goes around that and just continue its way, into the lake, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go to YouTube and bring up a tsunami video, and all of a sudden, that very soft, very pristine water that's running at a little lake, that water can actually pull a house together of its roots and bring it down. As soft as water can be, it is very, very powerful. So that's what you need to be. You need to be that lenient and that soft and that uh, in that kind of mindset that you are prepared to change at any given moment to whatever you need to shape yourself into, to whatever your mind needs to do and think. Okay? Don't preset your mind. Allow your mind to flow with price. Allow your mind to flow with what the market maker is showing you. That's the relevance of what I'm talking about here. Does that make sense, Jamal?
Yeah.
Would you like to add to that so far?
Yes, I'm taking down a few notes, but yeah, I mean, regarding that topic, just to put it in other words, so you have, I think in trading in general, you have to be very adaptive. Like adaptiveness is one of the required qualities, you should be aware of because, first of all, markets change, and secondly, you can't really be too opinionated. No, you can't be too judgmental. Even though as a trader you are a decision maker, of course,
Absolutely.
still you have to have that flexibility, and that's what you explained so beautifully here. And I think in the last podcast I said whenever you talk to a really good trader, they're nice people because they have the ego under control. Like a person who is too dominated by his ego always has those limitations and will struggle to have this boundless mindset as you are explaining here. But anyways, I can do make a few comments later. So just go ahead, dear George.
I just wanted your opinion and feedback on that.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. I mean, adaptiveness, number one, and of course, that's a very nice metaphor, no? To say, be like water, because at the end of the day, as we discussed last time as well, George, we are price takers. We cannot change prices, we can't move the price. Other entities can do that. We are price takers, we are on the buy side. So whatever the price does, whether it moves up or down, whether it does like a move completely out of the norm. We have to accept that as a given. So we are not the ones, controlling prices in any way, not even influencing prices in any way. So of course, the foundation you're building right now, in the end, will most likely come down to those kind of realities, isn't it, George? It's a reality. It's a given that you have to just accept as the nature of the game and build into your foundation, no, into your mindset.
Well, Jamal, we are both full-time traders, and we know what it takes. True?
Yeah.
Right. This is something that I put together myself. Until one masters the art of looking at the market as a full and complete picture in its full fractal nature and not from a bunch of jigsaw pieces put together, they will not achieve a high level of consistency in their strike rate. Now, that will sound contradictory to that dollar note, but that dollar note is that to show you the power and the importance of looking at that one picture in its full reality, and that is what makes up that picture. And we're talking about the fractal nature of the market, Jamal, okay? And you and I know what that is, and that is whether it's a 1 minute chart all the way to the 1 monthly chart, it is all one. But you need to understand how they interact with one another as a complete fractal. You see? That's the relevance also of that dollar note. So the 1 minute chart is just as important as the monthly chart when you view that market because they complete one another. Do not discount that. When you trade the 1 minute chart along with the higher time frame, you're not feeling you're not getting close to the heartbeat of the market. No, when you learn to apply that, which what I use for my TMAs, you're actually holding the heart of that market in the palm of your hand and you're feeling it pumping one beat at a time in your hand. You feel it. You're not close to it. It's in your hand. You're gripping it. So this is the very reason why when they cannot do it this way, that's why trading systems do not work consistently. Automated systems cannot work consistently. Why? Because these things don't have discretion. And that's the problem with automation and trading systems. Why? Because the market which I'll come to it in a minute, consistency is only achieved when the trader has the ability to approach that market with a boundless mindset, being prepared to change your application to it to suit what the price is telling you at any given moment. Why? The market is an infinite, revolving, and evolving fractal. Once you get to understand the power of that in reality and apply it to your charts, going all the way from your smallest time frame to your largest time frame, and take the whole picture into account and see it as that complete fractal, you will be amazed what it will do to your trading journey. And Jamal, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to add anything to this?
Well, so Judge, when I did my master thesis years ago, I was looking also at different fractal methods you can use in that context. But just to explain to the listeners, so George is referring to the fact here that the market itself, and we're talking about all foreign exchange markets and actually all other financial markets in general, they are inherently fractal in their nature, which means, and I think we also discussed it a bit last time, the fashion the price moves, the way the price moves on the chart is not very different across time frames. Like George said, if you take a monthly chart and then you take a minute chart, if I would hide the Y and X axis from you, you wouldn't really be able to say, okay, that's a 1 minute chart and that's a monthly chart. So there's some scaling going on. I mean, Mandelbrot, he calls it scaling. Just as a footnote, of course, that kind of scaling doesn't go on forever. So if you would go, for example, to a tick chart, and then if you would go below, of course, at some point the scaling stops. And that's the same also for fractal objects in nature. Like if you look at, a cauliflower or a sunflower, you see the fractal shape. You can zoom out, you can zoom in. But of course, at some point, the scaling stops. And Mandelbrot, he called it self-affinity, referring to the fact that, so to speak, the market or an object like that in nature has that scaling going on to some degree. And he actually went so far to measure the degree of scaling mathematically. But I think we just pay attention to George's train of thought here, because that's a great way of verbalizing those realities.
Lovely. Now, the one thing, now we've talked about boundless, and what needs to be done, but now we need to explain what does it take to establish a boundless mindset, Jamal. We need to talk about the details on how the trader should, what does he need to take into account to establish the proper mindset to become a successful trader. Agree?
Yeah.
Right. Now, this is something that I come across once. These are the 4 stages a trader will go through. The first stage is when you don't know what you don't know. You don't know something, which is the unconscious incompetence. You're not conscious of your incompetence. So you don't know what you don't know. True?
Yeah.
Right. The next level you go to is when you are aware of what you don't know, which is, I know I don't know what I'm doing. You know it, that you don't know. You accept it. From there you go to the next level, which you start to recognize what you are capable of doing, or recognize what you are starting to know. I can see what I need to do. And of course, get to the top level here, the last level, which is the unconscious competence. You're just not aware of the fact that you know it all. See? You just do things without thinking. It's just like when you sit down to drive a car. You don't sit down and think, okay, let me see. I got to put the key in the hole. I got to turn the key. I got to start the ignition. I got to put my foot on the brake, put it to drive, let go on the brake, and you don't do these things. You just get in the car without thinking. You turn the car on, you put it into drive, and you take off because it becomes a second nature. True?
Yeah, it's like a flow state. Yeah.
That's what Sadhguru calls attention without intention. I love that summary of his. Attention without intention. You just do it.
Mhm.
Any comments, Jamal?
Yeah, for example, if you learn to play a musical instrument, at the beginning you're thinking a lot. No, I have to press that button, I have to do that, I have to read the notes. But then after years of playing, you have internalized all those tasks, and then you're not consciously thinking about it, you're just doing it. And then, for example, if you are improvising, no, it just comes out spontaneously. So out of your subconscious most of the time. So you're not cognitively thinking, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, but you're actually, making decisions and doing something, out of your subconscious trained mind, isn't it?
Correct. I agree. And by the way, Jamal, our listeners don't know that we both have a musical background, eh? You're a sax player and I was a bass player.
Yes, sir.
That takes us into the next point, Jamal, that I'd like to bring to the fellow traders, and that is, I have come to the conclusion of this. There are three enemies really that a trader has. The first enemy we spoke about last time, it is one's self.
Yeah.
The second enemy is the psychology that is applied by the market maker that you need to master. And the third enemy a trader has, of course, is losing trades. So guess what? George has come up with a solution for these three problems. And that is, number one, develop a boundless mindset to overcome your weakness. Once you do that, I promise you, this will vanish. You'll just flow. The second one, master the psychology of the market maker. It's that simple. Yes, people say, oh, it's easy to say. Don't worry, it's all coming. The third one is losing trades. Well, I say it very simple, Jamal. Eliminate losing trades. Master the art of trading. You won't have any losers anymore. How simple is that? Some people are going to knock us on that. Yeah, you say it's simple. Well, yeah, it is simple. Why? We do it every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple in that sense, but of course, it's not necessarily easy, because, yeah, I mean, like in general in trading, like implementing your plan always requires dedication, isn't it? No, so people get confused because if someone says, look, trading can be simple, that means that you focus on the most important parts of it without getting lost in those Christmas tree charts or putting 100 indicators on your chart, and overdoing it, isn't it? But at the same time, of course, I always stress that, if you are trading in whatever manner you do that, always be completely on top of things, no? Be in a state where you can execute as you should. Because the truth is, George, if you are not there 100%, or if you get distracted or if you're emotionally affected by something, you quickly do mistakes, you quickly, do not stick to your plan, and so on and so on. And therefore, I would say, yeah, trading can be simple, but trading is not easy.
I could not agree more, Jamal. It's a very, very, very simple business. Why? The market can only go up or down. That's all. There's no other way. There's no other way. The market can only go up or down. You can't get any simpler. And believe me, all fellow traders, this is achievable. What I am saying here, 100% achievable, guaranteed. And I will give you, yet we're not finished. I have quite a few to go. So that is a very, very important way. And I hope all these guys are taking snapshots of this for their own selves to keep. So from there is that I want to bring something to the table here for all traders. And that is, now I come from a business background, and this is what I put together. And that is reality. And that is, when you study something, with enough time allocated to that something you are studying, you will acquire what is called knowledge. Then you take that knowledge that you are acquiring and with enough time invested applying that knowledge, you will gain what is known as experience. Now, trust me on this one. And I know this from my business background. Success in business cannot be achieved with one or the other. It's only when you acquire both knowledge in time and experience in time put together is when you're going to have the true and full success. And it will happen. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. That is an absolute 100% guarantee. Passion is measured by the amount of dedication allocated to learning something, because it will be the reflection of the success to follow. Comments, Jamal?
Yes, regarding that point, I would like to stress everybody who watches this should ask herself, do you actually have a genuine interest in the markets? Or do you actually want to trade for all the wrong reasons because you think you can make quick money, whatever? Because look, what George is saying here is, and that's what he is referring to with a passion. If you embark on that journey, yeah, and you want to succeed in the end, it's absolutely fundamental that you have genuine interest and genuine passion in that area, because only then you will have the strength to continue to improve, to continue despite setbacks along the way. There will always be ups and downs on the journey. Okay, and as George explains here, knowledge equal to study and time. I mean, in my case, as we discussed yesterday, George, when I developed the market causality, I took on a very radical approach. I said, you know what? Point one is observation. I'm not making any assumptions whatsoever. I'm only observing what happens in the markets when dumb money suddenly buys and the stops accumulate here and the range is this and these news are coming out. What's actually happening? So I took on a very radical approach to first only observe and actually document what's happening. And then at some point, if you have a collection of that, of course, then you can start to derive general rules. And then in the end, you can use these rules, to implement or to work into an approach or strategy. But, the same George stresses this point here. You have to be a learner, and do not think that you can start trading and sit at your home and just study a few hours and then make money. It won't happen. You will lose money. And also ask yourself, why do you want to be engaged in the financial markets yourself? Why do you want to do that rather than investing passively in an index or whatever? And then be honest to yourself. Look, it's not a shame if you actually admit, you know what, my passion for the markets is not high enough to go through all that pre-work, to do all these hours and hours of studying and learning and improving. And you will do yourself a favor being so honest to yourself at an early stage, because once you embark on that journey, you will be tested. I can guarantee you that. Your genuine interest in the markets will be put to test. So this year is definitely a germ.
Well, Jamal, I always say, time is the essence to everything in life. Mm-hmm. You know what the biggest problem I see in traders every single day out there, and I get that on the project every single day? They all want to be a Jamal and a George in 1 month.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that point from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, as we say, George, no, 40,000 or 50,000 hours. Pay attention to that rule. I tell you, whenever you talk to a trader, you will see that the number will be around that value. You know, George, as you know, the book says 10,000 hours to master something. Well, guess what? At another 10,000 hours for trading, at another 10 hours for foreign exchange, and at another 10 hours, 10,000 hours for foreign exchange short-term trading, you know, George, it comes down to around that value. And for most people, that means around, 3 to 5 years. You know, it can be short, it can be longer, of course. But we're talking about serious pre-work. And, we cannot stress it enough. And as George wants to show here, there is no shortcut. It doesn't work that way. You can't buy someone's strategy or take something which works for someone and try to copy it. It doesn't work that way. You have to walk the walk. It's easy to talk the talk. In the end, you have to walk the walk.
Well, Jamal, I want to stress to the fellow traders out there, all those wonderful people that are making the time to listen to this, and that is everything that I base my talk on, everything I share on the fact that we talked about in the previous podcast, and that is George's acceptable standard of consistency is minimum 90%. As just cold consistency, cold. But the ultimate consistency I look for all the time is minimum 95% on a very minimum. Now, how do they achieve that? Once you study and gain the knowledge, put the time in, and many people, Jamal, knock me when I say I've done this for 42,000 hours, but the point is, nobody understands how hard it is when everything that I talk about, everything that I share on the project, I learned myself. Nobody taught me anything whatsoever. Never ever had the privilege to talk to any trader like I can talk to you and things like that. Was never ever taught anything by anybody that gave me the privilege to sit with me and talk in detail about things. Now, I said it last time, 90% can truly, truly, truly be achieved. Guaranteed 101% that can be achieved. Then applying the correct filters which a trader can establish through gaining the knowledge and the experience, and they can minimize further 90% of the 10% that's missing in here, which will take you to what George is doing, 98 to 99%. The question is, all these people that knock us, oh, I could do this and I don't have to do what George is doing. 21 years being, or 16 continuous, a part of 21 years in total engagement, and they're like, associated with the financial arena. And I can do this in 2 years. I can do this in 5,000 hours, and he did 42,000 hours. Well, hang on a minute. Can you achieve this? No, you can't. To achieve true mastery is something that requires a long, long time. And also, Jamal, there's one question I ask everybody to ask themselves. What is the definition of a master trader? Ask yourself that question. A master trader or a master craftsman, but we'll talk about trading, is a person that can create consistency day in, day out, day after day with a high level of precision. That's what a master trader is. I'm not the best trader in the world. No, I'm not saying I am, but I guarantee you I'm one of the best because I know I am. Why? I know what my success ratio is. And I'm not putting tickets on myself and Jamal either. He's not putting tickets on himself. We know what we do. We know where we stand. We know what our level is. Jamal, I'll let you add.
So I try to clarify because, as you know, George, there are those people, they're like, oh, what do you mean? So George is saying and so for people to really understand that, he is stressing the consistency. So later on you will understand a bit more about his approach. For example, baskets, hedging, filtering, so what he's showing here is basically like the bottom line of all the other things which are already in place for George. So people have to understand that, so that George is saying here, based on, his completely detailed plan of compounding, of position sizing, there's a lot of filters and things in place which allow George to reach a very, very good consistency. So, and he will explain later on himself in other podcasts, I think.
Yeah, Jamal.
Things such as the baskets, because George, as you know, people, especially those forums, they react emotionally to those kind of things, because they do not understand that what you're saying is, well, look, I'm highly, highly consistent. And you don't need to be right on every single trade neither, because you have a complete plan in place which takes into account all these scenarios, all the outcome, as you show in the compounding plan, George, when you have the number of trades you could in theory lose, without being affected and so on. So just as a footnote to that topic, because people, George, as you know, tend to react emotionally to those kind of statements. Understand, it's about consistency. George is a master trader because he's very, very consistent. Of course, there are different strategies. There's not one holy grail. Like, I know other traders who have a completely different strategy. That they may trade breakouts or whatever. There are many ways of trading. But what George is saying is, if you found your way and you are able to consistently replicate it and implement it day by day, then you mastered the craft. So I hope that this, explains this better to viewers, especially newbies who misunderstand, what George is saying here. And in trading, it's all about consistency. Look, even if you have a strategy which needs more work, which doesn't have a very high win-loss ratio, but which has a lot of potential, even if you're at the point where, on a regular basis you have losing days or even losing weeks, the drawdowns, what you should aim for is more consistency. You're not going for home runs, as George said in the last podcast. If you want to do that, rather go to the casino. It will be more fun, and then you can decide, I put this money on red or on black. Trading is different. It's the opposite thing. It's not gambling. It is taking smart risks to achieve the upside. And of course, it comes down to consistency. Many people, they develop strategies, George, and in particular, they develop EAs, and they may work for 2 or 3 months. And then after this time period, they completely die off because they are not adaptive, and they just found some settings which work well for a current market condition. And later on, it's all over. So that, just as another footnote here, a lot of footnotes today. If you find something in the markets that, let's say, universally applies, then you're on the right track. And one of those topics will be targets, which will be covered in the future as well.
Correct. Oh. Jamal, you summed it up beautifully. It's the trading plan, the hedging plan, the basket trading. You see, this chain, I wanted to put it up because you need to establish a complete approach, as Jamal said, as a complete and complete trader. You need to be a complete and prepared trader. You need to have everything in place. All these things that Jamal talked about, that's what this chain is. And you cannot afford, Jamal will agree on this, I'm pretty sure, you cannot afford to have a weak link in your chain as a trader of all the different things that you need to put together to turn yourself into that complete and prepared trader. And Jamal talked about money management. He talked about everything, compounding plans, hedging plans. It needs to be complete. You cannot afford not to be so detailed. And I'm going to go into that next now.
Yeah, again, like another example, to clarify that a very important point. Look, if you're a musician, it's not enough if you understand only melodies, or you understand only harmonies, or you understand only rhythm, or you understand only, you know, how you accent a note. You need to understand all those areas, and the trading is no different. It's not enough to have great entries. It's not enough to have, good position sizing. It's not enough to have good risk management. It's not enough, to have good exits. At the end of the day, and that's what George shows here so beautifully, you need to have a certain standard in all of these areas. So that's why George starts with a mindset, because that's the basis. And he will show you the more technical things later on, because without that basis, all the other content can be worthless. You understand? So he's kind of building a pyramid here, and that's a beautiful thing. And look, this is true for all of us. If I have a great strategy and my win-loss ratio is very high, it can be completely irrelevant if I have very bad risk management and I don't have a plan. For example, how many trades can be open at any time, any point in time? Which session am I trading? When do I skip a trade? When the spread has this or that size? There are so many factors, and basically you need to have a certain level in all of those areas. Otherwise, there will be no consistency. And George here, as you will see, and as you have already seen, he has very beautiful concepts in each of those areas. He has his compounding plan, he has his for entries, he has his TMA and filters, and of course, that's why he starts with those topics. He has the understanding and, the self-awareness in place. That's for starters. And maybe later on in another podcast, we can also, take a look back and discuss with George when he was, on this journey. Where was he struggling? Where did he realize he needs to improve on this or that? But anyways, I'm talking too much, George. I love talking.
Not at all, Jamal. It's just that I truly believe that this subject we're talking about tonight is of extreme, extreme, extreme importance for the foundation of every trader, whether a new trader or a 10-year trader. As long as that trader is struggling, he needs this.
Yeah.
Not wants it, he needs it. I don't care what anybody says. This foundation is so, 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 so important. I cannot stress enough, because if you're not prepared to establish what Jamal and I are sharing with you wonderful people out there tonight, I'm telling you now, give the game away and go to the casino and spend your time there.
That's the truth, George. And look, you know what? The odds are against the trader from the very start. There's the broker manipulation, there's a market manipulation. You need to have self-discipline. That's the reason why over 90% of market participants lose money, as it has been proven again and again. So you're starting out, the odds are really against you. Do not think, oh, I'm the exception and I will be different. You will not be different. And then, when you embark on this journey, at some point you will realize that you need to master, or at least have reasonable rules in place in all of those areas, including the psychology, analysis, risk policy, also, by the way, technical topics, like your technical setup, and so on and so on. So yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way, George, how you explain that with those quotes, those pictures, those examples, those metaphors, because that's the way people actually understand it, or by giving examples. And many people, George, isn't it? According to our experience, they struggle so much understanding these basic topics, isn't it?
Well, we haven't really given the depth of the explanation. That's something we're about to embark on right now. I'm going to take him now to the next level with this and break it down to the exact detail of what we are talking about tonight. Because so far we have put general ideas and pictures, but now I'm going to break it down to the nitty gritty to show them exactly what we mean, Jamal. So what do you reckon?
Let's go for it, George.
Lovely. Let me start with this, Jamal, and to all our beautiful listeners here, our fellow traders, and that is, And forgive me, I always use the word George. I just love using that word George when I talk about myself. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not self-centered. I'm a very, very caring and loving human being. It's just that it sounds great. Okay. I had a saying once I heard from my very, very first course that I did back in 1998. And I love this. I never forgot this. And it says, I am an ordinary person. Well, Jamal, I'm a human being. I have a voice. I am made of blood and flesh and bones. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I am an ordinary person. And I do ordinary things. Meaning, when I open up the charts, am I looking at the same chart as you are, Jamal? Of course I am. From one broker to another broker, there could be a difference of now more than maximum 1 pip. Agree?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the same charts, and I am looking at the same what do you call it, spreads. I'm looking at the same pairs. I'm using the same, I've got access to all the tools every other trader has, and I do ordinary things like anybody else. I am not from outer space. I don't do things that brought from outer space. But what is the difference? Is that George does things in an extraordinary manner. How? Well, let's go into detail here. A lot of people are going to love this example because this is going to illustrate to the people exactly what I mean. We're going to cook a meal tonight, Jamal, to feed you and me and all our beautiful fellow traders.
Yummy.
Lovely. Now, how about if we go and cook a cream mushroom sauce pasta dish? What do you reckon?
Yes.
Right. So, Mrs. G, your lovely wife, she's going to take a pot that is going to be 4 liters in size, and she's going to cook some pasta for us tonight. So, she is going to put approximately 3 liters of water, and she's going to use 1 kilo of pasta, and she's going to add to this pasta, she's going to add 1 pack of cream, and she is going to cook the sauce, the water and the cream, and she's going to boil the pasta, and she's going to put this dish together as one option. Fair enough?
Yeah.
But yet, on the other hand, Mrs. G is going to grab the same size pot on this side, which is 4 liters again in size. She's going to still use 3 liters of water, and she's going to use 1 kilogram of pasta, and she will also use the 1 packet of cream. But what she is going to do different on this side, Jamal, is this. She is going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of spice, and she's going to add 3 tablespoons of red wine and 1 tablespoon of tamari soya sauce. And of course, she's going to add the mushrooms here, and she will add the mushrooms on this side. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the question here is this. A dish that is 4 liters in size, if we were to empty that with a teaspoon, that will equate to approximately at least 2,000 to 2 to 3,000 teaspoons to empty that pot out. Correct or not?
Yeah.
Now, the question here is this. We added 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of spice, 3 tablespoons of red wine, and 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. Now, is there going to be any difference in the taste between this dish, which is exactly the same as that dish? Huge difference. This dish will taste so bland with just water, cream, and mushrooms and pasta, where this dish will have all these extra spices and salt and wine added to it. Correct or not, Jamal?
Yeah.
This will be so bland you cannot eat it. This will be delicious. What have we done? We added only no more than about 8 teaspoons of whatever it is. If we equate the 8 teaspoons into the size of the dish, that probably would not even come up more than 1%. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to demonstrate to the people is to the detail that one needs to be applying to their journey and their approach in this game. That 1% difference extra they will do is going to make the difference between producing a meal that is absolutely horrible and cannot be eaten, and a meal that is exactly the same thing, but just adding little bits and pieces here that are nothing in size, that will make the world of difference to that meal being an enjoyable meal.
Yeah.
1%. You want to add anything to this, Jamal?
Yeah, so if you want to put this in other words, in a trading context, you can have, the exact same strategy in terms of entries and exits, but trader A, for example, uses, let's say, a fixed percentage on each trade. Trader B has a certain policy in place where, like the trade size depends on the trades which are currently open. So, of course, each system is highly, highly sensitive to each detail, to each change, you're making. And again, I think I said it before, I recommend every trader, even completely discretionary manual traders, to do some backtesting, with tick data, because you will see that. You will see that you have a strategy, and then you just change, you calibrate one little wheel of the machine, and the output can be completely different. So in simple terms, every trading system approach is highly, highly sensitive to the inputs. So, you will see that later on also. The power of George's approach, goes far, 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 far beyond finding entries. It's like he has covered all the areas, but he has like a really smart approach also in place, which allows him to have like a very, very optimal, risk to reward concept. And that's what George is coming to at some point. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't be, you cannot afford to not have attention to detail. That's what it comes down to. So if you're trading and you say, oh, you know what, these entries are good enough, I just keep things very simple. I will always, put a fixed stop at 40 pips, and that's it. What did Einstein say, George? He said, make a model as simple as possible, but not simpler.
Good enough is not good enough. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Good enough is just simply not good enough. I'm afraid that's garbage. Throw it in the rubbish bin and don't waste your time in this game if you're not prepared to go all the way and master the art of trading. That's all I can say to everybody. Unless you're prepared to make that unconditional commitment to want to succeed and become a master trader, take my advice. Go and enjoy your time at the casino and play there. Now, Bruce Lee have put up a beautiful saying, quote, that I would like everybody to look at. And he says, I fear not a man who has practiced 10,000 kicks one time only. I fear a man that practiced one kick 10,000 times. There's a lot of wisdom in this. There's a lot of experience this man talks with here. He doesn't fear a man who has practiced 10,000 kicks one time. They mean nothing. It's when you practice one kick 10,000 times. That's where the power is.
Yeah, and again, applied to a training context, I know
Thank you.
that when I was also starting out, of course, what do, George? You try to trade all kinds of setups, breakout, reversal, pullback, scalps. So what George is explaining here is, you know what? Pick one particular setup and become the master in that one. Don't try to trade all kinds of setups, just to have some action and to entertain yourself. Have the discipline to say, you know what? I'm gonna master, reversal moves, for example, and I will find all kinds of filters which allow me to do that, with a high precision and consistency. Don't be one of those guys who say, oh, this is now a breakout, I'm going to trade a breakout. This is now a pullback in the trend, so I try to trade the pullback also. Because what happens once you start to be so non-discriminating like that, it will end up in a mess. You will have all kinds of trades, and the truth is you didn't do the homework for each of those setups, so your approach to it will be way too rough, and you will fail. I mean, it's almost guaranteed. So that's why this quote is beautiful, and I fully agree to that. Especially if you're starting out, limit yourself to a certain setup. Don't try to do everything. Master one thing first, and you will see also how complex it is. Because once you're trying to, be a Rambo in this game, all what that happens is you will have trades open, and you don't have a plan in place how to manage them. You can't discriminate among those setups. So I fully agree with that statement. Yeah.
Jamal, that goes without saying, in my opinion. If you're not prepared to be that detailed and that precise, it's all about precision, okay? And the next thing I wanna demonstrate exactly what I'm trying to say to people, the power of what that means, or what you just said as well, is this. Who's this? That is Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, as we all know, is the Olympic champion, okay? And not 1 year, few years. Now, question I ask is this: what's a $1 note? What's Usain Bolt? Usain Bolt is a human being you see in front of you, but there's a lot of internal factors that play to create a Usain Bolt. He's not just a human being you look at. There's a lot more internally that makes up this amazing athlete. What do I mean by that? If you look at his foot and you look at the feet of the other runners behind him, everybody knows the difference between them is a microsecond timing, correct?
Yeah.
Right. The question is, I ask traders to think about it this way, is that Usain Bolt goes to the Olympics, and if I'm not wrong, I think he participates in 2 races, doesn't he? The 100 meter and the 100 meter relay of 4 runners. Is that correct, Jamal?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that is what he does. 2 races, the 100 meters and the 100 meter relay. Now, I believe he used to do the 100 meters in less than 10 seconds. And I remember I was watching one of them 1 year, and he did the relay in about 13 seconds or something. Why? Because he has to grab that stick from the runner behind him and what have you. So he had, you lose timing there. So in reality, if we look at it, Usain Bolt, once every 4 years, remember this, once every 4 years, he goes to the Olympics and he works for 30 seconds. Jamal, 30 seconds. Does it once every 4 years. How little work does he do every so many years? Can you imagine the amount of training this amazing athlete does in between one and the next 4-year session?
Mm.
Every single day, probably minimum 5 days a week, he will train and practice just to go and work for 30 seconds. That's why he is the master he is. That's precision. The highest level trainers work with him. He's a machine. Anybody can run, but we're not all Usain Bolts. Why? his stand when he's ready to start, his left foot, his right foot, his running, his arms, his motion, everything is worked via computers to fine tune him into the athlete that he is. That's the kind of depth one really needs to go to become a master at whatever it is you want to do in life, Jamal.
Yeah. There's a nice example, George. It's from the MMA world, so those competition fights. And there's a fighter. His name is Butterbean. And the funny thing is, he's an extremely powerful fighter, but he's pretty overweight. So you see him competing against other fighters who are really in great shape, and who are like looking like bodybuilders. And Butterbean, he actually, doesn't look like a bodybuilder at all. He has quite some fat. However, why is he so successful? Because he is a master. He has practiced his punches, his kicks thousands of times. He has developed a style which suits him and his physique, which is extremely powerful. So that would be another nice example. It's like no matter how people look from the outside, it's about what kind of tasks they actually mastered. And of course, the example you have given here, that's powerful. And also look up Butterbean. You may think, what's this? This overweight fighter. He will probably be defeated straight away. And guess what? He's winning against all kinds of fighters who are better trained than him, but he has an advantage because he just has perfected his punches, his kicks, his defense.
Lovely. Well, I hope our fellow traders, were able to take something on board as to how they need to think, what sort of depth they need to go into to dive into themselves, into their own selves, into their own mind. And like I said, I'll give you the link for Sadhguru's video. And there's one thing that I'd like to say to finish off here is that from my personal experience dealing with a lot of traders, is that a lot of them come to me, and the first thing I say, look, can I look at your charts? So they open up their platform, and we're sharing screen, and I look down the bottom of the platform, and I see a lot of pairs, and I say, hang on a minute, how many pairs are you tracking? And I've had traders that go for anything from 8 pairs, and they go all the way to something like 16 pairs. And I say to them, okay, let me ask you a question. You're tracking that many pairs. I said, can you guarantee me that you can clock 100 pips a day? They said, guarantee? I said, yes. They said, no way. I said, okay, can you guarantee me you can do 50 pips a day? They say, no, I can't guarantee it. Can you guarantee me you can do 30 pips a day? Well, no, not really. I'm talking day after day, consistency, no loser, like you got to do it every single day. No, they can't guarantee it. I said, hang on a minute. You are tracking anything between 8 and 16 pairs, and all I'm asking is 30 pips a day. This is very important to a lot of traders. This is where a lot of them have problems. And when you think about it, if you're tracking 8 pairs and you're only after 30 pips, you're talking about 4 pips a day out of each pair you're looking at, if you're tracking only 8. And I say to them, hang on a minute, you got all these pairs trying to look professional, looking at so many markets, and you cannot even guarantee out of an average range of 55 pips all the way to 130 pip markets we're dealing with here, and you can't guarantee 4 pips a day out of that market? Could there be something wrong with what you are doing? Oh, I never thought of it that way, their answer is, Jamal. I never thought of it that way. That's the first answer I get all the time. I say to them, come on, guys, wake up. You are tracking so many pairs. So what's the problem here, Jamal, is what I'm trying to bring to the table, is that there is no focus. There is no precision. Everything is average.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest killers traders are dealing with nowadays on the market. They want to look at too many pairs. I tell you what, Jamal, I track 3 pairs, and they're a handful to handle. And I am a very experienced trader. Why? Because I like to do things with precision. If it's not precision, I don't want to know about it. I'm not interested. And to do anything correctly, you got to do it deeply and properly. So, guys, wake up. Don't at the beginning until you have mastered this game. And believe me, Jamal, I was trading the pound yen most of my time. And it's only recently in the last few months, only less than 6 months, I brought on the two other pairs. All these years, I was always a one pair trader. Why? Until you master the art of trading, our lovely fellow traders, please concentrate on one pair only. Why? It doesn't matter what pair it is, it all applies the same way. The market runs exactly the same way on every single market out there, like we said it last time.
That's a very, very important point, and I just would like to add a short sentence to that. Be aware, even for example, if you trade, let's say EAs, and you put the EA on different pairs, even if you have many pairs, be aware of the correlation. Yeah, I mean, Australian dollar is correlated to euro dollar, and these correlations change, of course. You have to be on top of things in terms of knowing which pairs are at the moment pretty correlated, and then you will actually realize that while you believe you have a diversification in terms of exposure, often the diversification effectively is not that high, and you actually have a similar kind of exposure because obviously, let's say Aussie yen, dollar yen, they are correlated, and if one market makes a move, the other one does a similar move. That's another footnote. So I fully agree what George said. If you develop your approach, especially if you trade manually, you need to focus on the few pairs. The reality is, George, that people, they don't like to wait for setups, because it can be tedious. And to be honest, I also had to, when I started out, I had to learn that, I had to develop the discipline to wait for setups and to not just, place trades. And sometimes if it means that for a few hours you are analyzing and you didn't click the button, that is necessary in this game. And you know what? Even a guy who does futures order book scalping, he still needs to do that. So it comes with the game. And that brings us back to what we said before, the genuine passion for the game, because only then you can develop that kind of patience, discipline.
Well, Jamal, I want to finish off with a very, very, very important point. And it's a sad story and sad reality that I hear it all the time from traders. Until a trader masters the art of trading, they should not trade a live account.
No.
That is my cardinal rule. Do not trade a live account until you have mastered the art of trading and you can achieve the consistency that you require to achieve, that you are personally satisfied with. And you know what George's level of satisfaction is. That's my level. I can't dictate it onto anybody. That's me. It's up to you how casual you are or how serious you are. Well, I'm a dead set serious trader like Jamal is, and I have very, very, very high level of acceptance, and I am very tough on myself. In fact, I get accused often because of all the nonsense that I cop, that sometimes I'm arrogant, I am abusing people. No, I don't abuse any person. I abuse their lack of seriousness. I abuse the garbage that they carry, the useless indicators they use, the useless approach that they apply. I abuse everything about that trader, but not the person himself. Please get this right, guys. A lot of the guys who are knocking me gonna hear this, and that's a fact. And that's a fact, Jamal. I suffer a lot from this. Why? I have no tolerance for bullshit, and I have no tolerance for nonsense. Okay, I'm a dead set serious master trader, and I have no room for garbage. It's as simple as that. Now, demo trading is very, very, very powerful. Why? You need to learn in an environment that does not have financial stress. You cannot learn in an environment that you will be stressed about money. And these ignorant educators, they keep saying to people, you've got to trade a live account so you can get the feel of it. Well, I tell you what, Jamal, let me throw a question at all our wonderful listeners here, our fellow traders. If you were to trade a live account while you're learning and you took a trade, the market is running down, for example, and you took a trade, you bought here or you sold up here and the market didn't do what you wanted to do, you've created a loser. I ask you a question now, and listen carefully to what I'm asking. By creating a loser, what knowledge, the word knowledge, have you added to your knowledge bank? So a lot of people don't get it. What knowledge have you added to your knowledge bank by creating a losing trade? Well, the answer is, Jamal, is zero. Because losers don't teach you knowledge. Losers only do one thing and one thing only. They build your experience bank on what it's like, what it feels like to be a loser. How good is that feeling, Jamal?
Not good at all.
So, Jamal, I really, really want to finish off with this point. Losing trades do not add any knowledge to your bank.
True.
They only add experience. That's all. Knowledge has to come first. That knowledge gets developed into that experience. Because if you have the right level of knowledge and you establish the right level of experience to go with it, you're not going to have these things at all. They'll be wiped out. They don't exist. Over to you, Jamal.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree to your point regarding demo trading. I mean, especially if you are not a full-time trader yet, or you're not a professional trader, take the time to do exactly that. I know it takes discipline, but again, that's the reality check. Do you have the passion, the genuine interest that you will sit down and trade a demo account for a few months without earning anything, but also without not losing any real money? And another thing I would like to add, George, I think I didn't tell you this, but every single manual trade I do, George, I document every single trade in a journal with several screenshots with the date.
Wow.
I have like an internal a website kind of thing where I do that, and I suggest that to anyone. Every single manual trade I document there, and I have thousands and thousands of collected trades there, because that's the only way to have accountability. For example, if you made a mistake or if you didn't trade optimally, this allows you to go back and see, okay, at that stage I made a good decision. At that stage I made a wrong decision. I should have stayed longer in the position, and so on. So yeah, of course that takes work and that takes discipline. But if you don't do these things, if you don't have a trading journal, there will be no learning. I like this concept George presented today, the experience part and the knowledge part. And what you said about the demo, I fully agree. Do that. There's no argument against it. And most of the time, most of you guys and girls, you will find that you would have lost money. I mean, that's a final point I would like to make.
Yeah, Jamal, the question I ask is this. We have a demo chart on this side and we have a live chart on this side from the broker, right?
Yeah.
There is absolutely no difference in the price there and the price there. They're exactly the same. Absolutely the same.
I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, there's slippage and commission, and sometimes they have different values.
Doesn't matter. I'm talking about knowledge, acquiring knowledge. It doesn't matter. Yeah. The question is that chart is 100% the same as that chart. It may vary sometimes 0.1 of a pip difference or something. That's all. But really, that is that. But more importantly than that, Jamal, is this. Because they're the same chart, if you cannot trade successfully with consistency on a demo, how the hell is anybody going to do it with a live account?
No.
If you can do it here, you can do it here. If you can't do it here, I don't care how much money you're going to put on. I don't care what feelings you're establishing. It's all nonsense. It's all lies, because brokers wanting these educators that do webinars to get you to trade with live money. Why? Because you need to feed you dollars to support these brokers. Wake up.
Absolutely, and so many entities in that industry, they just want people to open accounts, to place real money, to trade, so that brokers can earn money, that they can earn course fees, whatever it is. So always understand, and I think I made a video about that as well. Understand, follow the money, understand what people are after, and here you see the honest opinion of a real trader, yeah, telling you clearly, look, do the demo trading, develop a strategy, don't waste real money on something which is not finished yet, and that's the truth. And if you talk to someone, or if you see a video of someone who has like commercial interests in terms of, oh, I hope you guys open an account with us so we can earn commissions and whatnot, be aware of these points, because the reality is, much of the content you find online is driven by those kind of entities trying to get you to eventually open an account and place real money. And it's in your interest to not show up to a gunfight with a knife, so to speak, yeah, but to actually be prepared. So I 100% agree with George. Take the time to develop things first. Don't jump into it. It won't end well. Don't abuse this game to tell some interesting cocktail party stories. It's way too expensive for that. You want to have a cool story. Oh, yesterday I traded and I made $1,000. Don't do that. It will backfire. It will not be worth it. You need to take it seriously, because the odds are against you, and you can see already. You already get a feeling for the complexity that is behind a serious approach like the approach George follows. We're talking about a lot of topics, a lot of tenets which need to be in place before you basically go to the battle. And I fully agree with that. Do a trading journal. Take the time to document what you're doing, because you need to have something you can actually see black on white. You need to have something you can improve. You need to have something which you can measure. It's a very, very tedious process, but it's also fun, because along the way you see how you will approach the game better as before. And I think, George, what do you think? I think everybody has to go through that, isn't it? Because if you don't follow the rules, you will just have a lot of losses and pain until you understand that you need to change something, is it?
Well, if you put together a very solid foundation in the way of mindset, in the way of trading, and the way of everything, the game, like you said, it really is fun. It becomes enjoyable without stress. But these brokers will say, "Oh, we'll give you $35 credit. We'll give you $50 credit." Why? Because they know they're going to give you that money plus your money, and you're not going to, and you're going to lose it. They know you're going to lose money, because professional traders, they don't go for this garbage. That's rubbish. A professional trader doesn't need his broker's $50 or $100. A professional trader, he's got his own money to trade. He doesn't get lured in with all this garbage, because that's what they do to entice the amateurs, just to collect their $100, $200, $300 that they open the account with. That's the secret.
Yeah, I fully agree. And by the way, those kind of brokers who offer you these kind of bonus payments and whatnot, most of the time these are just market maker, desk-based brokers who will even trade against you. They are not true ECN, direct market access brokers. They will just try to churn you away. And unfortunately, these are the ones who do the most aggressive marketing as well, with shiny logos. And those are the ones putting a lot of content out there. Like they have people working for them, calling them a market analysts. And those market analysts, they make videos on how you should analyze and about supply and demand and all that garbage, and then sometimes they don't even trade at all themselves. You know what I mean? Like, it's even worse than all those economists who talk about markets but never traded themselves. But anyways, that's another topic. But please appreciate, guys and girls, please appreciate the honesty and the way George explains this truth. And that's also why I wanted to document this, because this is how it is. And if you don't believe it, well, here you can hear it from, a really, really developed trader, who has walked the walk. And I love the way you explain this, George. It's very clean and very intuitive.
Well, I hope that all the wonderful people out there will find value in what you and I shared here tonight, Jamal. I truly want to thank you for making this happen. And I really want to thank all the people out there again for putting in the time and listening to what we have to share with them. And I hope that they are finding value. And I felt today's video was extremely important for many, many traders out there.
Absolutely, George. Thank you so much for that. I will definitely watch that video several times myself. And yeah, I think the next podcast will also be rather technical, I guess, no, George? So, but this is a necessary basis which needed to be put into place. And it's just fantastic. I wish I would have seen something like this, 10 years ago. Anyways, it's there now. And I can't even think about any similar, presentation. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, but there's a lot of, wrong stuff out there as well. Even people who, sell all kinds of, courses and books and whatnot, they actually do not really understand, the basic realities in financial markets, in FX. And yeah, I mean, what can I say, George? Fantastic. That was a very, very, very nice presentation. We all have to learn from. It's a reminder for all of us, to always come back to that video and to remember, okay, this is the way, it has to be done. It has to be approached because, if you want to build a house, if, the fundament is not solid, it can implode. So thank you so much, George. It was beautiful. I'm looking forward to the next podcast as well. Believe me, there's a lot of concepts George could explain, until your head starts to smoke. Because once we put up charts, once we put up some charts, you will see how George actually approaches a chart. How he identifies, okay, this is a pressure zone, how he filters. I love that stuff. It's beautiful. And I'm looking forward to that as well. So I guess next week, George, no, we do it, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. And, and believe me, guys, I draw a lot of strength affirmations when I talk about this. It affirms and confirms for me everything that I apply myself, and everything that I shared here tonight with you is exactly how I have established my foundation. I established my mindset. I did it all by myself, never ever had the privilege of anybody to teach me anything. George walked solo for 21 years in this game, and this is exactly how I keep that foundation solid all the time, by sharing all this, by talking about it. I get as much strength as all you guys get out of it. And I just, my advice to you all, I urge you all to get serious about this game. If you're not dead serious, walk away, go and do something else. And my love to everybody, my best wishes to everybody. Be proud of what you are and who you are. Lift your head high. And believe in yourself, most importantly, and don't let anybody put you down, whatever you do. And don't you dare doubt that you can master this game if you want to. It is all up to you. Thank you very much, and good night to everybody. Love you, Jamal, and we'll talk.
George, we are blessed. Love you. Have a fantastic evening.
Talk soon.